The grand dining hall shimmered beneath golden chandeliers, the soft clinking of silver cutlery blending with hushed conversations. The air carried the fragrance of a lavish feast, an indulgence only the wealthy could afford. Yet, behind the polished marble floors and glittering wealth, something far more powerful was about to unfold. Among the servers moving silently through the crowd stood Anna, a timid young maid in her early 20s. Her freshly pressed uniform did little to mask the quiet exhaustion etched into her pale features. For most of her life, Anna had survived by being invisible. She had no voice in this mansion, no power, no say. She existed only to serve. Anna's life had been anything but easy. Raised in a small town by a single mother who worked endlessly to keep them afloat, she knew hardship from an early age. When illness took her mother, Anna was left with debts and broken dreams, with nowhere else to turn. She moved to the city, not seeking glory, only survival. That was how she came to work for the Harringtons, one of the most powerful families in the region. The patriarch, Richard Harrington, was a man who had built an empire from nothing. His name commanded respect, and his wealth seemed limitless. His son, Damien Harrington, was the pride of the family, handsome, privileged, and arrogant. Raised in luxury, Damien was used to getting anything he wanted, whether it was admiration, respect, or submission. To him, Anna was little more than a servant to mock for sport. For weeks, she endured his cutting remarks and sly insults. He found pleasure in making her uncomfortable, his sharp eyes lingering on her in ways that left her shrinking deeper into silence. She never complained. She never fought back. Her head remained bowed, her work immaculate, and her uniform neat. To Anna, silence was survival, but silence shatters when dignity is stripped away. One evening, the Harrington mansion overflowed with guest politicians, business partners, and socialites who bathed in wealth and power. Laughter and conversation echoed off gilded walls while Anna moved carefully through the crowd, serving wine and maintaining the comfort of those far above her station. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked, but she carried on quietly, determined not to make mistakes. Damien, however, was watching her, surrounded by friends eager to be entertained. He decided to make Anna the center of his cruel amusement. As she passed by, he tugged at her uniform, at first a small pull, meant to embarrass. She gasped softly, trying to pull away. But then, with a swift, careless motion, he ripped the fabric near her neckline. The sound of tearing cloth silenced the room. Anna froze, her face flushing with humiliation, her trembling hands clutching the torn fabric against her chest. Tears welled in her eyes as laughter died in the throats of the onlookers. What Damien expected to be met with amusement instead filled the room with discomfort and disapproval. Richard Harrington, seated at the head of the table, rose slowly to his feet, his sharp eyes fixed on his son with a fury Damien had never seen before. The weight of his gaze was enough to make the air heavy. He slammed his hand on the table, the sound reverberating like thunder, and demanded an explanation. Damien gave a nervous laugh, brushing it off as a joke, but no one else was laughing. The guests shifted uncomfortably, whispers filling the silence. Anna's quiet sobs pierced the hall, carrying not just humiliation from that night, but the weight of years spent unnoticed. An undervalued dot for the first time. Richard truly looked at her not as a maid, but as a human being whose dignity had been stripped before his eyes. His anger turned not only toward his son, but toward himself for raising arrogance that could treat another person so carelessly. He ordered Damien to apologize, but Damien, blinded by pride, refused. And so Richard made a decision that stunned everyone present. He turned to Anna, his voice gentler now, and told her she would never again have to endure such cruelty in his house. He promised her protection, compensation, and dignity. Trembling, Anna shook her head and whispered that she had nowhere else to go, no family, no home, and no path forward without this job. The revelation left the guests shaken. The wealth and grandeur of the Harringtons stood in stark contrast to the fragility of the young maid who had nothing. Even Damien, for the first time, seemed shaken as he realized the weight of his actions. Richard stepped forward, removing his own shawl and draping it over Anna's torn uniform. His gesture was quiet yet powerful, shielding her from further shame. Then he addressed the entire room, declaring that respect was not something bought with money, but something owed to every soul regardless of wealth or station. His words fell heavy on every heart present. The evening, meant to showcase power and deals, became something else entirely. It became a mirror. forcing everyone to confront their own arrogance, cruelty, and blindness. In the days that followed, Richard acted on his words. He gave Anna a new role in his household, not as a maid, but as a valued member of his staff with dignity and respect. He ensured she had a safe home, access to education, and a chance to rebuild her life. For Anna, the humiliation that had once broken her became the beginning of an unimaginable transformation. For Damien, it was the start of an awakening. His father's disappointment weighed heavily on him, more than any punishment could. For the first time in his privileged life, he saw the consequences of his arrogance. Anna's quiet strength haunted him, forcing him to realize that true power wasn't found in tearing others down, but in lifting them up slowly. He began to change, seeking forgiveness, learning humility, and understanding that redemption is something earned, not granted. And for the guests who had witnessed that night, the lesson followed them home. They had come expecting wealth and luxury, but left with a reminder of the humanity often forgotten beneath layers of power and privilege. The millionaire father discovered that wealth without compassion meant nothing. The arrogant son learned humility, and the quiet maid, once invisible, found her voice and her worth.